You are listening to Processing Trauma Out Loud, conversations about trauma and healing from two women who are doing the work.
Hey everyone, this is Candace and Cher with Processing Trauma Out Loud. Cher, I'm excited today because we have a really special friend on with us today, and our friend is named Lisa Schultz, and she is from the Chicago area. And Lisa, Cher and I thought you would be a wonderful person to just kind of interview in the midst of this series that we're on about attachment woundings that lead to our attachment styles. So if you want to just introduce yourself more, and if you don't mind, also just letting people know how they can contact you, because I do believe you work remote too, if you would have somebody that would like to reach out and work with you.
Yes, my name is Lisa Schultz, and I have a practice called Life Breath Counseling. I have an office in Hoffman Estates, Illinois, and I do offer virtual and in-person counseling. You can give me a call. My phone number is 847-962-0306, or you can reach me through the website, which is lifebreathcounseling.com.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so we're just going to kick this off. Lisa, we've been looking at the avoidant attachment wounding and the anxious attachment wounding. And I think I'm just going to start out. Can you share just a little bit of your background as far as what it's been like for you in looking at your own attachment wounding?
Yes, I think I was talking to Cher a little bit this morning. Whenever I talk about attachment or think about attachment for myself, it's been an attachment journey for me, more than a category through my childhood, and then becoming a parent, and then building a relationship and a life, and just coming like full circle with my younger parts. I can feel oftentimes, because I have been aware for a lot of my life of the need for attachment. So I can kind of feel or sense when parts of my younger places are moving into either way, like an avoidant type of response or reaction to something, or an anxious place. I was raised by a single parent who had minimal emotional resources. And so there was an emphasis on, for me, needing my body and attachment to my body, or attachment to myself, to be able to kind of survive. So I think I initially leaned towards anxious. This is a long answer to your question. I initially leaned towards anxious. At times, I learned how to tolerate like an avoidant. And I just kind of call that, well, I've heard the term an burnt out pursuer. So anxious attachments will pursue, right, to alleviate that anxiety, and then hit a wall and kind of bounce the other way, right? Whether that's as a baby or in an adult relationship. So I feel like I can kind of connect with some of that, but also through my healing journey, I have come to develop and earn secure attachment with myself, with my higher power, and with others. So it's kind of been full circle for me.
Candace and I know a lot of your stories and I wanted to say to our listeners, Lisa is one of the Pearls. We've done story work together for over 5 years and met together regularly. So So as you're sharing, Lisa, I'm thinking about some of your stories that you have shared with us, and just that being able to connect with, and Candace and I have talked about how our insecure attachment is formed over time because of experiences that we have, especially in early childhood, where we're trying to achieve security, but we're a child, maybe even an infant, and it's all just kind of this primal, visceral, turning toward withdrawing or crying. And so as you're talking, I'm envisioning a lot of your stories and pieces of your stories that you've shared with us too, and how it's not like we're all one thing or all another. Like, and you and I talked a little bit this morning about the spectrum idea of how when we get into situations of conflict or confusion or disruption in our relationships, we find ourselves somewhere on the spectrum of being anxious or being avoidant. And I feel like that's what you were kind of explaining almost in a way there in what you were saying.
Yes, I think historically researchers have categorized attachment in these 4 quadrants of anxious, avoidant, disorganized, and secure. And I was actually looking up, I have taken the attachment quiz 6 times over the last, since 2019. There's a website that I've taken it at, and that's I think it's .net or personality.com. And they track it. So when you pull up the graph, you can play it and see how your attachment moves on the graph over time. So I was kind of looking at that this morning and reflecting and refreshing, because it does ask you what are the things that have happened in your life too, in recent times, to know that there's connections between current attachment wounding and old attachment wounding. But it still does have the quadrants versus a spectrum. I know Julie Manano has more of a, it's like a triangle spectrum. And it does have, like, as you move closer to a secure attachment, there is this back and forth, because you have an earned secured attachment, but there's still these young places that go into places of avoidant or anxious propensity. So you can kind of feel that and sense that, but through the healing work, there's movement. There's movement with that. So that's the hope.
Yeah, Lisa, I'm curious, when your avoidant is kind of getting triggered or you're anxious, do those feel differently in your body? And if so, what can you share a little bit more about how you turn towards your body to do the discovery process of what's going on?
Sure. I was actually listening to your podcast that you did yesterday or last week. And when you were talking about, what was it? I think it was about the anxious attachment. And I totally just lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
How does it feel? Candace,
so I'm going to answer your question instead.
How does it feel in your body? Like, do you have a sense of when you're anxious or your avoidant kind of kicks in?
Oh, for sure. And yes, absolutely. So when an anxious little girl shows up for me, it shows up, I feel like, as energy in my body, like almost a panic. And I think that you had said something about that last week. That's what I was thinking about. It's a kind of an existential fear and panic. Yeah. So the feeling feels like an energy in my body, needing reassurance.
Okay.
And whether I ask for that from my people, or whether I can offer that myself for the time being until I can reach out to somebody, or but that is the feeling of I'm needing reassurance. I'm needing to be seen, or I'm needing to be assured that that everything's okay, or I'm okay.
Mm-hmm. I love you naming existential experience, and existential meaning life and death. And
Yes.
and I really like bringing that big concept to the table, because that's the reality. Like, when we were kids, it was life and death to get connection or not. Like, it felt, to a baby, it will feel like you're dying if you
and
don't.
it is.
And it is, right. And so, but then when we're 10, it's not existential, but it feels. And when we're 16, it feels. And when we're 35, right, and it can be a small little thing that happened. And logically, we know it's a small little thing that happened. Like, it can be a look that somebody gives us. But inside, we can have that same feeling of I might die. And so I love your saying, like, what we need in that moment, because we're feeling panic or, some level. So we're somewhere on the spectrum. But what we need in that moment is somebody to check in and say, are you okay? Like, what do you need? How can I come alongside? And then a lot of times we don't get that, because we might do something then that triggers the other person, and then they go into their own insecure places. But I really like you naming that it's existential, because, like, that's the truth. When we go into our insecure places, it can so often feel the way it felt to us when we were very, very young.
Yeah, I like that you're using the word reassurance for the anxious part. And as I was listening to you, I was kind of giggling on the inside, because when I have seen your avoidant part show up, I really like her. Not that I don't like your anxious part. I love her too. And I Cher and I are both part of your people who want to bring reassurance to that part of you. But this avoidant part, and I could be wrong, so I'm going to throw this out here. You know that I have an FU part, and for some reason, my FU part likes your avoidant part. Because she's actually not, though she may need reassurance, I'm guessing it doesn't feel like that so much. It's more you need to protect yourself, or what does that part feel like for you?
When the avoidant part of me shows up? Okay, so let me kind of reflect on that, because I feel like I have two parts to that. Okay. In the sense that because of my story of not having a lot of faces and attunement to reflect my internal experience, the avoidant part is more like hiding.
Okay.
And then I also have a defiant avoidant part that's kind of like a hell no, I'm not going to engage with that. But I don't know if that's maybe a healthier part. I'm not sure.
That feels a little bit healthier.
Like I'm not going to, that's not a battle I'm going to fight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like that. And I'll say, I think we've been seeing more of that part too from time to time. And I'm even thinking about our trip, because we recently did a trip to Galveston, and there was a day that we met together we were on our Zoom call, and you really spoke up and said, here's what I need. And you asked for something that you really needed that the rest of us were kind of assuming. And you were able in that moment to step forward and to say, like, here's what I need. And wow, I mean, what did that feel like for you to be in a space with other women and be able to step up in kind of a big way and say, hey, stop, here's what I need?
Yes, that's a growing experience for me, to be able to bring the fullness of my needs. I would say that sometimes that avoidant part wants to do, now that you said that, it kind of triggered that I'm not going to engage in this battle that isn't necessarily a healthy part, because it's like the battle is to fight for myself. Mm-hmm. Right. And and it doesn't have to be a fight as much as, right, in a healthy relationship, conflict is not a fight, it's a conversation. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to have the conversation for myself, because the other option was, well, okay, I'm just going to meet my need this other way and just not, mm-hmm. and I'll let them know that I'm not going to, I'm going to do it this way, instead of bringing it to the group and saying, this is what I need. Mm-hmm. So that's helpful reflection about that specific need and process. And that's the thing is the growing assurance, like that slow growing assurance of, I can bring this need to this group, to this person, to these people, and assurance that they will hold it well, that they will be able to hear, and not in a way that they have to jump and accommodate, but the need coming from a place of naming a boundary, and not being a demand, but a request to consider. Yeah. Because in relationship, we can't meet each other's needs all the time on the whim, when there's conflicting needs and multiple needs. But what does it look like to have a conversation about what each of us need? Mm-hmm. And that was really sweet. That was a sweet experience.
Well, and I think I like what you're saying, because you're bringing up asking for what you need. And this is the work, is that we have to slow down to figure out what we need. Mm-hmm. And that piece of it, that preemptive piece, can sometimes be the hardest work.
For sure. Yeah. Yes.
And also that we, like in this situation, we, the other members of the group, wouldn't actually know if you don't tell us. But, and this is where, and I want us to close out for today, but we are going to come back next week with Lisa too. But I want to say this, but that's where, when we go to our insecure places and we either go into anxious or we go into avoidant, we often don't actually say what it is that we really need. And so we kind of go into this swirl, or we go into these cycles that we've replayed over and over and over in the relationship, where we're trying to get our needs met without actually saying what our needs are, because saying what our needs are is so vulnerable in that moment.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're just getting started. I feel like there's so much I want to talk about, and we will be back on the next episode with Lisa too. Anything that either of you want to just say closing out this episode?
I just want to thank Lisa for being willing to show up and share. We have been in close community with you. You are, I've never hired you to be my therapist, but I would because you're experiencing you and your deep level of insight and wisdom and compassion. It is just truly profound. It almost chokes me up a little bit. And we just appreciate you sharing your heart with our listeners.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Love you both.
Yeah, good to be with you both today. And we'll be back. Love you, Candace, and love you, Lisa.
Love you too.